Welcome, folks, to today's KKE, all about the expanded and improved, enhanced SNMP data gathering features in the K1000 as of the 6.3 release. My name is Ron Colson. I've got several other panelists with me today, as you will no doubt notice. And Ken Galvin, our K1000 product manager, is going to be leading today's session. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Ken.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. Just want to make sure, again, you can hear me okay, Ron?
Everything sounds great.
All right, super, great. Hey, thanks very much for your appreciate it. I just wanted to mention a couple of times here, the presentation is about to begin. Please use the Q&A panel to ask questions. There's going to be a bunch of panelists there who can actually answer your questions as in real time. I'll also pause for some Q&A as well. And also, this is going to be recorded. So in 1 to 2 business days, you'll get a link that'll tell you how to get there. Okay. So again, all lines are muted to eliminate the background noise. If you have questions, please submit all your questions as you have them in the Q&A section, and our panelists will answer them as soon as possible. And again, the event was recorded. You'll receive an email with instructions within 1 to 2 business days. So I did my due diligence and said everything twice. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. As Ron mentioned, this is going to be a discussion specifically on SNMP customization. I'm going to do it in a couple of different parts. Excuse me, I have a little trouble with my this WebEx interface. We're going to talk about very briefly a review on discovery versus inventory and how that affects licensing and in your pricing and all that. So something we've been asked, frequently asked question. I just want to review that with you all before we go forward. And then we're going to go into the SNMP custom configuration proper. And finally, a big part of that and questions associated with it, okay, that's great, we know how to configure it, but where do I find my object IDs and the MIDs and all of that sort of stuff? So don't worry, we're going to have all that. I'm actually going to go over a primer that I put together, and that at the end of this, the very end of this presentation today, we'll give the URL to that as well, so that you will always have access to it in the future. Okay? So this session, again, is going to be recorded. It's going to be recorded along with other deeper dives on K1000 version 6.3, which are available on the KACE continuing education page. The site that you can interface with is case.com/KKE. There are some ones that I know that I've done recently that are on new features that came out with 6.3 that we have a lot of questions about, and these are pretty good. There's a server monitoring one, there's one on Chromebook integration, and also one on Agentless Windows inventory. All those are new features in 6.3. If you don't have 6.3, probably want to take a look at them and probably want to upgrade as soon as possible. A lot of really good stuff there. Okay, so again, that's case.com/KKE. And let's go ahead now into the actual presentation. Again, I'm going to do a very quick overview of agentless inventory provisioning because there have been some questions about it and want to make sure that there's less confusion when people move to actually 6.0 or 6.3. So there's a difference between discovery and inventory. Discovery, you can discover all you want, and there's no license consumed, doesn't cost anything, so go nuts with the discovery. Whether you use an Nmap or whether you use an SSH or SNMP or wherever you do it, we're going to focus on SNMP today, but no matter, or AD or anything, or Chromebook, discovery is free, okay? It's not until you actually provision for inventory that your license is consumed, okay? So let's just take a really quick look at what the difference between the two of them, what they look like. Okay, so if you notice, there are, this is all agentless stuff right now, and on the screen you're looking at the one that's highlighted, the CentOS box. That is discovered, but it's not provisioned. The ones that have the blue and actually have the blue icon next to it, the agentless icon next to it, those are provisioned. So those actually would be provisioned for inventory, and just the way you would do it, if something is just discovered and not provisioned, you just click on it, you go to provision, agentless automatic is probably the easiest, fastest way, and then once you do it, it'll do its typical until it checks in. You'll see the red line, and then when it's done, there you go. You'll see the icon appear. That means that you're good to go. You're inventorying that, and it's flowing into asset tables and all of that. Okay, so just a real quick review on that, particularly for those of you who are not yet familiar with 6.3 or 6.0 for that matter, because that's been around since March of last year. Okay. All right, great. So let's talk about the actual topic today, which is custom SNMP configuration. And let's review, first of all, why we have this. When we came out in March of 2014 with the basic SNMP inventory, it was good for a lot of, for a lot of reasons, but it was very basic. So, for example, it just would list the IP address, the MAC, manufacturer, I think uptime, it's like 4 or 5 different things that it would grab for you, okay? Instead of that, now what you'll be able to do is decide, which specific pieces of data you want for each device, and then grab that data. So, for example, printer toner cartridge or, UPS, uninterruptible power supply, battery temperature or battery capacity or that sort of thing. BIOS information, whatever you want to get, you can get just that information that you want, and not get flooded with a whole bunch of information either. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. The way you do it is you'll notice, for those of you who are new to 6.3, under the inventory tab now, there's the SNMP inventory configuration. So that's where you'll start. Again, I just really quickly want to clear for you. You'll notice that icons on the screen here. You see the familiar agent one that has the 3 dots in the middle, and you have the agentless one that has nothing in the middle. On the very top there, you see we have a Windows 2012 server, and that has it's agentless, but it also has this big blue dot in the bottom right-hand corner. That indicates that it's server monitoring is happening. Okay, so just want to make sure you're aware of that. Again, this is all recorded on the KKE page, links to it if you want to go look at that one separately. It's a really cool new feature, okay? All right, so I got off track, I apologize. In order to go ahead and start configuring, you go to the SNMP inventory configuration on the left-hand nav, and then from there just choose action and new, okay? You notice there's a remove from all devices also as well, so obviously that means if you want to get rid of this configuration for all your devices, you can do that as well. So let's concentrate on creating it. So we're going to hit new, and this is the screen that will appear. So you see it's blank, and this is where you're actually going to put in the object IDs, the OIDs. And we're going to get really deep into OIDs and MIBs and all of that in the second half of the show today, but I just want to kind of give you an idea of how to interact with K1000 first, okay? So this is where you actually put the information in. We're going to go back here and take a look at one that's already created for APC's UPS, okay? And I've actually filled this out already for these screenshots. If you take a look here on the left-hand, on top, first of all, you see the name, APC. You can, call it whatever you want if there's specific different ones that you want to layer on to different APC devices in different locations where you want more like granularity with one versus the other, so on and so forth. And obviously, you can put whatever you want in here. And then clearing this from the left-hand side all the way to the right, you notice on the left-hand side, you have the object IDs, the OIDs, okay? And first of all, a little trick, look at the dot starts there. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But you notice a 1.3.6.1.4. If you're not familiar with SNMP, which most of you probably are, 1.3.6.1.4 and so on and so forth, you go all the way down to where those are basically standard identifiers, but when you actually go further to the right, you'll notice the 318 is one that will be specifically for APC, and there'll be a different one for Cisco, and there's a different one for every other device or whatever you use, okay? And then as you go along to the right, those will be the actual, objects, and so from there, it'll actually, we're doing OID gets here. It'll actually, the K1000 will reach out to that specific device, say, I want to get the information related to this specific OID, and that's how you would do it, okay? Again, we're going to get really deep into that in a minute, but let's go ahead and continue with the K1000. Okay, so the middle one you see is expanded here. These are the categories, and you should be pretty familiar with them. When you go to the device detail screen, these are the categories that you can actually expand or contract, the little accordions, if you will. And so you're very familiar with summary, which is on the top, and hardware, and so on and so forth, agent, and other. Okay, so that's the actual place where this data, when it comes in, is where it will be mapped. Okay, we're going to map it to that particular existing K1000 field. The interesting thing to keep in mind here is that you can only use the existing K1000 fields at this time. In our next release, we're going to give you the ability to add other non-computer type fields. But there's a gazillion different ones out there that already exist, but they've been pretty much computer focused because that's where the K1000 has been focused for quite some time for most of you out there, using it for your Windows boxes and so on and so forth. So in the next release, you'll have, some custom fields that you can use, but also some fields that are that are more accommodating, if you will, for for non-computer devices. Okay, so that's the so we started from the left. We have the actual OID, which is the actual identifier for the specific data that you want to grab. Then in the middle you have the summary, which is where it's going to be located on the page for the drop-down box, and then the actual properties. You have a property box as well. So in each category, it's going to give you specific properties that are related in that category. So you notice in the top, you'll see that was a hardware one. The first three actually are hardware ones, one for BIOS, and then the BIOS information is hardware information. Okay. On the bottom here, though, in the summary, this is where we're going to do this one. The last OID is going to go into the summary part of the page, or the detail page. And then we're going to choose, in this particular case, the model number, because that's what that OID relates to. Okay? So I hope that made sense. Then you're just going to, here's some example of some of the other ones that you can actually get in under summary. They should look pretty familiar. You can scroll down. There's more. And again, there's a whole bunch of them out there. But there is not, for example, one for printer cartridge. Okay? So I'll look forward to that in the next release. All right. So then now I've inputted all the information. Again, all four of these are ones that were input, okay? I'm just showing you the one on the bottom as an example of one that we're doing live here, if you will, okay? So these are the four pieces of data that I want to get from my APC UPSs. I'm going to save that, and that's what you'll see. Also, obviously, you can see that you have the ability on the right-hand side to delete them using the trash can. You can edit them. You can reorder them in typical K1000 looks, okay? All right, so from here, we want to actually apply that to some devices. So we've decided which OIDs we're going to grab. Now we have to decide, okay, where do we want to apply them? So from here, you just go to your device page with which you're very familiar. You're going to select, in this particular case, you see I'm selecting this UPS. Okay, it's an APC UPS. And then I'm going to apply the SNMP configuration. You can see you could also remove it as well from this drop-down. Okay, so choose actions, apply SNMP configurations, and there's only one configuration right now, so that's the one we're actually going to scoot over. But you can layer them on. So if you have some devices need more granular information, or you could create a basic one for all Cisco devices, and then separate ones for switches and another one for wireless devices, or so on and so forth. Okay. All right, so you just go ahead and scoot that over and then save it, apply the SNMP configuration, I should say, and you're good to go. So now we're actually going back to that specific UPS's device detail screen, and you can see that we have the system model number in there, which would not normally come with the basic information, those 4 or 5 things that normally come out of the box, okay? You also have the BIOS and serial number information now, which you didn't have before. And keep in mind, this is inventory, so it's going to the same tables, the same places as anything else that you normally use. These are, and so you can run reports, you can do all the stuff you normally would do, okay? All right, great. And not only reporting, but also you can do notifications for SNMP devices now using this data. So let's give you an example of that. Before we do, let's cover what it is and what it's not. Okay, this is we do have server monitoring in version 6.3, which is log monitoring for server class OSs only, and it includes threshold monitoring and application log monitoring as well. Okay, but this is different. So what you're talking about here is you're creating alerts from inventory, and that's what this is. Okay. Also, it's a good time to discuss SNMP traps. For those of you familiar with traps, they're not included in this particular release, but we have them prioritized for our roadmap for future release. Okay, but you'll still find this very useful. Let's take a quick look at how you do it. Go to notifications as you normally would. You see in this particular case, the system's description contains APC. And you notice I put in the notes field because there is no battery level or battery capacity field. So we put this in the notes field, and then we're saying that when it gets to 50%, less than 50% charge on that battery, give me an alert, please. Okay. and that's how it works. Okay. Again, the new field names, expected availability in the next release, extremely high priority for us, and we'll get that done for you. As the K1000 is evolving to do all of these SNMP devices for endpoint management, literally can do anything now. We're catching up on the fields for that as well. Okay. All right, great. So now would probably be a good time to just pause for maybe 3 or 4 questions. Ron, can you do you have any questions you can so far?
Yep, we got a couple here. Number one, what we see is okay. How much does it cost, this particular feature?
Oh, really good question. I'm going to go over. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to hold that till the end because I'm going to go over all the licensing. But
sounds good.
Let's go ahead and I'm going to go over all the licensing for everything new in 6.3.
All right, cool. Second question, can you use this for computers as well as the non-computer devices like printers and such?
Sure. If it's SNMP enabled, you can do it. So good question. Thank you.
Does the feature, does the customer OID get feature support the SNMP version 3?
Yes, most people have SNMP version 2 stuff out there, but we definitely do handle version 3. And for those of you who are not aware of it, the version 3, SNMP version 3 specifically gives you, a lot of security. But yeah, it absolutely it does. So that's great.
Cool. You already mentioned this one, but I'll go ahead and state it again. Is there a field for toner cartridge?
Yeah, not yet. As I mentioned, you can map to other fields, like like when I just showed the example. Until the new fields that better accommodate non-computer devices are added. Again, it's planned for the next release. Really expecting it to be there. Again, and there are lots and lots and lots of fields right now. You're out there. The one I just showed, the example, the APC BIOS example, is a good example.
Cool. And the other one we have is, can it receive SNMP traps? Again, you've already answered that one.
No, it can. Yeah, I did answer it, and the answer is no. And it is a huge priority being considered roadmap future release. One thing that'll really help a lot is if anybody on here gets onto user voice. I'm going to show you how to get there if you're not familiar with it. Really encourage you to use user voice. Get on there, vote early, vote often, like it's a Chicago election, and that'll help me when I pitch it to the brass to make sure we can get that going for the next one. So, but I think I'm going to keep going then.
Sounds good.
And there'll be more question and answer at the in a minute. Just wanted to kind of do a quick pause to make sure I wasn't putting people to sleep. Okay. All right. So that's kind of how to do the K1000 thing, and there's and all this is documented obviously in an admin guide. And feel free to come back and look at this when it's recorded. But I did want to spend some time, in fact, a lot of time today, going over something specific that I get a lot of questions on. So, this is really great. You can get these specific OIDs and all that kind of stuff and get specific information. But, how do I get that? So I actually have published a Dell case primer on this specific object. We'll give you the links to that in a couple of seconds. But I want to review that with you very quickly. Let's go over that. Well, you kind of, and again, if you're very familiar with SNMP, please bear with me because it's a mixed audience here. I don't know, the level of comfort everyone has with it. So this will be a quick review for you, okay? So first of all, we talked a little bit about SNMP OIDs versus traps. Let me clarify what that means. OIDs are gets. OID gets is where the K1000 goes to a device and says, it authenticates with the device and says, hey, I want to get this information for this specific OID. Give it to me. And so the device will actually give that information back, and we do our thing and so on and so forth. In this particular case, the SNMP traps, those are where each manufacturer has designated, here's some important stuff that we think is important. And when this happens, I want you to send out, in other words, the device originates and sends out a trap to any device on which it's, configured to send traps. And that information will come and be processed. That's not available right now. It will be. But it's important and germane to this particular discussion we're about to have, because when you actually go and start looking into MIBs and all those kind of stuff, it may become a little bit confusing. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is now and talk a little about MIBs. MIBs is, if you want to think about it, MIBs is basically, for all intents and purposes, a text file that looks kind of like a little mini database in text format. Okay. So basically, it lists all the OIDs and it lists what they are. And this is what we actually, do to we grab that information for you and change those numbers you saw. And we're going to do this in a second and go through it thoroughly. Those numbers actually represent, a whole bunch of information, and we're going to actually take a look at that. Then we're going to actually walk a MIB using, a MIB walker, and take a look at, how you can actually find the actual specific OIDs that you want in a MIB. And then, the big mysterious part is, okay, so what if I don't have the MIB? What do I do? And we'll go over that as well. Those are the big questions that probably will make it a little difficult. And as we talk about this, keep in mind, when you do this, what we're about to do, you do once. And this is an initial setup to find some specific information for all your devices. You don't have to do this but once. So if it does look a little confusing, don't worry about it. First of all, you have this primer you can go to and walk through it step by step. Second of all, it's a one-shot deal. You do it, and you're good to go for forever. Okay. So again, I think I already covered this, but some good examples of a trap is, hey, something went wrong. Your device is on fire. Okay. Whereas a get is, hey, hey device, are you on fire? So that's kind of the difference between that. And the object IDs that we're going to call OID from now on are the numerical representation of the actual data and then the value associated with that data. So in this particular case, like battery capacity is 90%. Okay, you can find this information. Typically, you're going to contact your hardware vendor and ask for specific MIBs for a specific device, or you may have gotten it. You probably got it with the device. Probably the person that ordered it before you started had that information and lost it on you. So let's go over the MIBs. Okay, so it's, again, to manage information base, they contain the plain old English descriptions of each OID, and that's really important because when you're trying to find specific information, although the description names are kind of good, you want the actual plain old English thing to be, to really be more granular. There are a lot of generic MIBs out there. For example, RFC 1213, that's the MIB that K1 uses now without you doing anything, the default MIB. That's what we use to get the basic SNMP information provided since K1 version 6.0 in March of 2014. Okay, so that's the ones your IP address, the MAC address, and so on and so forth. That's already built in. That's done. But there are also specific MIBs, like for printers. There's like a generic printer MIB. Hopefully that'll be all you need. If not, you can go down to specific manufacturer-specific MIBs. So each manufacturer creates their own set of MIBs based on what they think is specifically important. Okay, so that's the deal on the MIBs. I also want, if you notice the numbers that .1, .3, .6, .1, so on and so forth. This is, and again, this is you can you'll have access to this little primer, so you can go through this later if you want to take a look at it. But a good tutorial I provided for you as well will you may find helpful if this is the first time you're not super familiar with MIBs. Okay, so again, this is an example of the RFC 1213. So out of the box, this should look familiar to you because this is stuff we're basically providing to you out of the box by default whenever you enable an SNMP device for inventory in the K1000. Okay, so super high-level OIDs found in generic in the generic MIB. Okay, assuming you have the MIB or the MIBs, you can use a free MIB walker that you can download and install. iReasoning is a really, really good one, and they have a free edition. Recommend that. Often times your MIBs will, they came with your device's software when you bought it. You should be able to get it from the device manufacturer if you don't have the MIBs. You can find it online. Oftentimes, just Google for the device that you want, the name and the MIB, and that's how I find it sometimes. And sometimes they even have information in there for you that makes it easier for you. And if you still don't have it, that's okay. We're going to show you later on this deck how you can actually find it yourself. Okay. So here's the download and everything. You're going to get all this later, but This is where you actually, I'd recommend, it's excellent, it's free, it's installed, you make sure you install the free personal edition. A real quick note, SNMP version 3 is not supported in the free version and requires using the trial version. But again, since you typically are going to do this just once, that should be no problem at all. Just get the trial version for that, okay? Really recommend this one, works great. And here's an example, a quick review of some terms of what you'll be looking for. So this is the OID number. So this is what you want, okay? This is what you want to put in the K1000. We saw that a couple of seconds ago. You saw the .1, .3, .6, blah, 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 okay? You notice the description under there well, let me go through it one by one. This is the MIB in which it's contained. So this is the MIB in which the OID is contained, okay? So this and, a gazillion other OIDs are contained in this particular MIB pertaining to APC's UPS, okay? This is their actual, this isn't a generic one, this is their private one, okay? You're going to see this description. So this is the OID name. Sorry, this is not the description, this is the OID name. So you can actually use this in place of the OID number. They are one and the same, just translated from numerical into text. You can kind of tell what it means when you look at that, but frankly, they're usually pretty cryptic, which means, you're probably going to want to actually go down here and look at the plain old English description. Typically, this is what you really want to see and decide if it's what you really want to input into the K1000 for inventory, okay? So that's the key thing. If you notice in the top there, I wrote the OID description. This is found only in the MIB. And just kind of, if that doesn't make sense to you yet, just kind of hold that thought, because it's going to be important in a minute. You can find these, the OIDs, and you can find the OID names in a lot of different places, but to actually find this granular description that actually, really clearly describes what it is, you can only find that in the MIB. And so you need to have the MIB available in order to do that. Again, I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. So let's talk about this then. What you're going to do to walk the MIB, now we've downloaded, assuming you've downloaded iReasoning's MIB Walker, you're going to, MIB browser, you're going to open the MIB browser, you're going to load this MIB, okay, which hopefully you have, and then you're going to span the tree, you're going to look around into it and find the OID name that looks promising, and then you're going to kind of click on the leaf in the navigation. We'll actually show you this in a second, so don't panic if you're not getting all this. And basically, if you find what you need using that description, like we just saw, then you put that in your K1000, and then you're good to go. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So here's an example of iReasoning's MIB browser. So it's opened up, and you notice that the first thing we're going to do is go and load a MIB into this browser. Okay, it just parses through and finds you specifically what you want and displays everything in a really nice, easy-to-use format, with tree and leaf kind of thing. In this particular case, I happen to have the PowerNet MIB. Okay, notice it's a text file. You go ahead and load that up, and then you start expanding it to find what you want. Okay, in this particular case, you notice I went into the APC, I went into products, hardware, and then I went to UPS, and I found a whole bunch of stuff in there. Now, I know that I want to find some battery information, so this looks pretty promising here, but take a quick look at some of the other things as well that you can go into the main categories that you can look at, UPS diagnostics and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to open that thing up, and by saying I want to get that subtree and I want to look at that. So if you right-click on the folder that likely has the data you want, you'll note that the higher, this is important, notice that the higher level the folder is on the tree, the bigger it is. So the longer it takes to load. And, the more objects will be there to sift through, which can be, confusing and cumbersome. So particularly if you're inexperienced, remember, try to drill down as far as you can before you start doing this get subtree part, okay? But remember, although I'll repeat this over and over again, this is a one-shot deal. You only have to do this once. So if it looks like it's getting confusing, you guys are all smart. You can get this. Don't worry about it. Okay. So in this particular case, this is where the MIB browser is going to be the biggest help to get the good, good old plain English description. In this particular case, you notice that I've drilled down to the battery capacity, and you can see the remaining battery capacity expressed in % of full capacity. Okay. So that says, okay, yep, that's what I want. And then from there, you grab that OID, okay? That's what you're going to put into the K1, okay, using the process that we just went over earlier today. Okay, so moving right along, this is where, you actually put that OID in here. In this particular case, I want it to be in the summary, and I want it to be the name, and so on and so forth, okay? So that's how you do it if you have the MIBs, okay? Typically, you're going to have them where you can find them. Sometimes they're a little hard to find, okay? But what if you don't have the MIBs? Well, if you don't have them, first, again, all of this is included in that primer that we're going to give you the URL to, by the way, so don't worry. You don't have to have this all memorized. Before you search for the MIBs, make sure that you don't have them already. Again, they come with the device's software often, or you might be able to get them from the device manufacturer. You should be able to get them from the device manufacturer, go on their web page and find that. Okay? But if you don't have them, and you can actually, instead of walking the MIB, as we just showed you, where you loaded the information and you walked it, you can also use a MIB browser to actually walk the actual device. So again, the previous slides gave step-by-step instruction on how to walk a MIB to find the specific OID number you need. But if you don't have a MIB, the best place to locate it is to walk the device and then find some OIDs residing on the device and match them to a MIB using tools available on the web, so you can actually go find that specific MIB that you want. Again, let's go ahead and, instead of talking about it, let's go actually take a look at it. It'll be a little less confusing, I think. Okay, so what we're doing here, again, we're not loading up a MIB. We're actually going to the actual device. So in this particular case, it's 10.4.144.441 is the IP address of the device we're going to look at. Okay, we're going to choose, instead of getting the subtree or doing anything like that, we're going to walk it. Okay, so we're going to actually walk the device itself. And you walk, and again, it's a walk can take a while to load up, so be patient. And then what you do is scroll down and pick an OID name that looks specific to that particular device that you want. So in this particular case, the input line voltage, yeah, that's a battery thing, right? So you notice that the device walk does not provide the plain English description. So, but you should be able to decipher what you need just based on the OID name and its value located in these two columns. Okay. Notice the OID field provided on the top of the screen. Where says File Edit Operations Tools, Bookmarks Help, underneath Help is the OID, and then to the right of that there's the actual OID itself. Okay, so copy this OID number because you know that this is one that you're going to want, or something very similar to exactly precisely the information you're going to want, which means you Google it. I just use MIB, and then I put in the actual, I paste that, I write the word MIB, and then, paste in the actual OID and Google it. The reason being is sometimes you get super lucky. In this particular case, you can see what we have here. Someone did all the work for us already, okay? So they have listed, and the rest of this page has some of the most frequently used UPS OIDs that you really want to get, and I actually cheated when we did this, put this presentation together. Okay, so don't be afraid to use to cheat, because I mean it'll save you some time, and oftentimes you'll get lucky. So this is cool. If not, you can use an excellent tool into which you can paste an OID, and it'll give you the plain English description, and most importantly, it'll give you the MIB to which it's associated. So if you're just looking for the plain English description, this is a place where you can do it. But more importantly, if you're going to be loading the MIB up because there's a whole bunch of things you want to get from that particular device, this is what you want to do, okay? So you paste in the OID, okay, into that particular tool, and this is kind of, just FYI. You see that on the top where it says .1.3.6, as opposed to on the bottom where it says 1.3.6. When you actually put it into the K1000 tool, you want to use the .1.3.6 version of this. But when you use this specific tool, they don't want you to put the dot in front of it. So, and it'll drive you nuts until you realize, oh, I forgot to do that. So it'll tell you it's not good. So just a little FYI for you there. Okay, and then you actually do the, the search. You scroll down, and you'll see here's the MIB, PowerNet387.mib. Okay, so this is the actual MIB file that you want to grab, and you can actually download it. You can see the short URL for this page, so on and so forth. Good stuff. Okay. Then from there, you can also, you know, you're going to. So that's what the MIB is, but then you want to download it, and you know, so you actually, you know, find a place to download it. You can actually, you know, Google it, or you can use the method. In this particular case, you know, you can see here that you can go to APC MIB Depot. So you can Google it to find it, or you can just go right to this other thing. Again, this is all included in this primer. We're going to give the URL to it in a couple seconds. You use a MIB download site like this one, MIB Depot, which is great. It's easy. Just go right to that, put in the information, and it'll give you the actual MIB download, and you download it. Okay, so that was a lot, and you know, for the 18th time, you know, this is all included in the primer, and so if I lost you, I apologize, but it's all there. In fact, this should look very familiar because it's almost verbatim on the primer. So again, you may not even have to ever do this, but you know, you walk the device using the iReasoning MIB browser if you don't have the MIBs. Okay, so you walk the device, you find you know, a OID that's kind of like, yeah, this is what I want. It's a battery. I want, you know, voltage, so on and so forth. I want amperage or whatever. You search for the MIB, then you download the MIB. Gave you the tools with which to do that, and then you go back and follow the instructions on how to walk the MIB. So you can actually, you know, go into the MIB as we did in the very first part of this, you know, MIB thing, and you know, go through and find anything you may want to grab for learning purposes or whatever. Okay. So again, keep in mind, you know, you're typically already going to have your MIBs, and although this seems kind of complicated, it probably is. It's a one-time exercise, and you'll be glad you did it. Okay. Final notes here. This is an important part. Actually, yeah, let's go ahead and do the final notes real quick here. Talk about this. This is important. I want to talk to you about SNMP gets versus SNMP table gets. Okay. Real important to point out, and this is a note of caution here. Note that the K1000 version 6.3 does not do table gets. Only single, what they call leaf gets. We'll show you that in a second, what it really means, okay? But it's important to keep that in mind. Taking a look at a MIB browser, if you see where it says the IF table, okay? So it actually looks like a table and it says the word table, that's a table. On the bottom though, those leaves, obviously they're leaves or nodes, whatever you want to call them. They use leaves for this particular a MIB browser. Those are cool. You can use the leaves, but you can't use the tables, okay? So it's just really important to remember, you know, leaves are good, tables not so good, okay? It won't actually do it, okay? We're hopefully planning that to come out in it's on the roadmap, prioritizing it up to get into a future release to be able to do table gets. We just had discussions about that, in fact, last week. Okay, so it's a coming, okay? Let's see, this is just another tidbit. If you're looking through and you see a numerical OID displayed instead of the name, that means that you need to load a different MIB that supports just those OIDs. And we already described how to do that. Don't let it throw you. You notice the ones on the top, you see the names, and then all of a sudden you start seeing a series of them, an array of them that don't have any names. That just means you need to go find another MIB that's correlated to them. For example, Cisco, you may have to layer on several different MIBs to find all the information you want because it may be contained in different MIBs. Okay. All right, but using the information that we gave you here, you should be able to handle pretty much anything. Okay. Okay, great. The additional resources that I mentioned to you. This actually, Ron, if I can impose on you to send this out, look at that. Awesome. Check out your chat box. He already just sent it out. You are the man, sir. And this is where you can actually go to find the primer I mentioned to you, where you can go through it step by step. The URL above that, the SNMP, dash OIDs tag has been created. specifically so you can share or ask questions. You know, there's someone out there, and this is pretty new, so it's not going to be, you know, a whole bunch of information right now, probably more questions than answers. But feel free to, you know, to say, hey, does anybody out there have the MIBs for such and such? Or I'm trying to, you know, kind of do some alerts on some really important stuff for my, you know, my printer. Does anyone know how to do the printer toner cartridge OIDs for, you know, a Dell, hopefully, printer, and so on and so forth. Okay, so take a look at those, and IT Ninja, it's a good resource. A lot of ninjas are out there working 24/7 to make each other's lives easier. Ron, I'm going to go ahead and ask you if you have any more questions. I am going to get to licensing, by the way, in a sec. I just want to ask any more SNMP questions that we can answer in the meantime.
Yep, got a couple more here. Again, you just answered this one. They were gonna. The question was, is there a place to ask about and share the OID and MIB info? And I'm assuming the IT Ninja resource you just shared is the place.
So that's why you were ahead of me on that one. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
I said URLs appear. So good man. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that's answered.
All right, and then you mentioned the fact that TableGets is coming. Can we get a little more information on when we can expect that feature?
Yeah, we've been having discussions on that. Where, you know, it will not be in the very next release, which is coming out third quarter of this year. I'm hoping very much we can get it in the following one. I can't commit to that. Obviously, can't really commit to anything because, you know, priorities change and all that. But that's a real big, important one to both myself and also the head lead dev person on this. We had a discussion last week, brainstorming session. His number one item, and in fact, he's one of the panelists, John Bolton, you know, this is our number one on the hit parade for SNMP customization going forward. So, you know, I'm hoping we can get that done in the next. Our next release is a minor release in third quarter, and then the following release hopefully will be in there, which will be a major release. Thanks for asking.
All righty, and then the last SNMP question we've got is, will you be able to configure the K1 to receive SNMP traps from target devices that aren't servers, like printers and routers, et cetera, not just servers, but also the non-operating system devices? Yeah,
good. That's kind of like two questions, and I want to make sure I separate them. Again, you know, server log monitoring is available in 6.3. It's for server classes only, and that's, you know, true monitoring. Whereas the SNMP traps, again, that's same answer in terms of timing on that one. That's another. I think that is the two questions just had were the number one and number two requests that we expect to do in hopefully in a very near release. I know, however, that it will not be in the following release right after this one. Okay, I mean, it will not be in the release third quarter. So, but you know, we're hoping to get to the top of the to-do list after that. Pretty confident we'll get that done.
And then the last question is about the licensing, which I know you're about to go over. So.
Yeah, great. Good segue, sir. You're doing great. Thanks. Let me go ahead and talk a little bit about licensing now. So let me get this WebEx to work here. Okay, let's talk about licensing. All right, so a lot of you are familiar with some of the ones on the top here, so we don't have to probably review them too much. I'm going to go through these one at a time, make sure we clear them. But, you know, again, everything you're looking at here is list price, so on and so forth, but just to kind of help you calibrate where we are in this one. Okay, so the new stuff is the asset packs, and there's also the server monitoring module. The server monitoring module will start from the bottom and going up. Is $2,000 for 200 servers, and that's a flat fee, so it's up to 200 servers. If you buy one, it's $2,000. I mean, if you're going to monitor one, it's $2,000. If you're going to monitor 200, it's $2,000. Okay. Yeah. However, on the other hand, we have right above that the new asset packs. Asset packs are, you know, you buy them in bundles of 250. And they're going to be for the non-PC and non-server devices. So, you know, most of the stuff we talked about today, all the SNMP-enabled devices, but also Chromebook. So if you have any education folks out there, in particular, where Chromebook's like exploding, we're going nuts with not just our device, the Dell Chromebook, which is being very well received, but also we're the only people out there, K1000, that can integrate with the Google console so that you can get all that information, put it in your assets, and you know, and inventory it, put in your assets, and use it, interact with your service desk, and all that kind of stuff. So whether it's an SNMP-enabled device or a Chrome device, Chromebook or Chromebox or whatever, you would use these asset packs for that, okay? Above that is the, if it's a managed computer, whether it's a PC or a server, no matter how you do it, it's going to be $31 per, after the initial 100 and all that. Okay, so let's get a little deeper into each one of these specific ones. If you, the computer, the licensing, the managed computer license count the same for computers, whether you do it agent or agentlessly inventory. Okay. Obviously, if you do it with an agent, you're going to get more information, metering and blacklisting and so on and so forth, but and be able to distribute software to it and patch it and all that. But agentlessly is important too, because the reason we have the agentless is to supplement those for where you can't put an agent on something, or we don't have an agent for it. And you may have specific servers, for example, where your security policy prevents you from putting any agent on there, and you know the drill on that one. Okay, so they're the same either way. And then for the non-computer licensing, which is new, this you buy an asset pack license count, you're going to enforce that in version 6.3. Okay, for non-computers for new customers. Okay, so you want to get on this and start using it now, testing it, because you provision it and it's not going to cost anything. The asset pack license counts aren't going to be enforced for non-computers until the release after 6.3, which is 6.4, and that'll be in third quarter of this year. So I really encourage you to go try it during this grace period, and see how it works, and take a look at it. I think it's I think you'll find that it's really excellent, and you'll want to get one of those or many of those asset packs. Okay. The server monitoring licensing, by the way, you get free out of the box. So if you have servers out there you want to try this with, go for it. It's 5 free out of the box, and the other information below there is for RC participants, and that's old information from about 6 months ago. So please ignore that. Okay. If you have any suggestions, we really encourage you to, again, to please use user voice. We're mandated to look at this once a week. We have to go and look at every single user voice. They can respond to it as quickly as best we can. Although some of the questions are, some of the stuff will sit out there for a while because there's other more pressing matters. But on this stuff we just talked about, like traps and so on and so forth, if you have voted like crazy on that, then that's going to help me pop it up to the top of the priority list. So really recommend you do that. If you have any ideas of anything you think that would work better to make it easier for you and for your other KACE K1000 partners out there, please use it. Obviously, use the KACE.com/KKE to look at all of the wonderful demos and so on and so forth. There's ones that I didn't do. They're probably better. We have a separate demo on server monitoring. We have one on agentless window inventory. We have one on Chromebook integration. And, which again, we're the only folks doing that. If there are any EDU customers out there, education customers out there, take a look at it. Really cool stuff. And that's really it. I think we've answered all the questions. We've let everyone get off the phone 13 minutes earlier. And thank you very much, Ron, for your for inviting me over here. We appreciate it, and a big shout out to particularly John for debbing the software, and also for Jana and for Gary for being on the call today to answer any panelist questions that came up. Serving as panelists to answer any questions you have. This will be recorded. You'll get a day or two. You'll get the link to it. So, Ron, I'll turn it back to you to close it up. I'm going to go ahead and take off. Thanks again.
Thank you and your team so much. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we can collaborate again in the future. Folks, I want to let you know that the home of KKE has changed a bit. So if you go to KACE.com/KKE, it'll look a little bit different than the website you'll see here. And we are in the process of moving lots of the recordings from the old archive to the new archive. So just bear that in mind when you go. If you don't see all of the old ones, we're still working to get everything migrated over to the new support.dell.com. Other than that, I want to remind you that we have an open forum every other Thursday. We've got one coming up next Thursday. If you have any questions about anything that you have witnessed in any of the KKEs or any other questions, any other problems that we can help you solve, please don't hesitate. Come to any one of our open forums and we'll be happy to answer your questions, happy to demo anything that we can. Until then, folks, have a great day.